Welcome back, audience. Hope you're doing good. Cheers. Drinking a little bit of mate. Yummy. Okay. Whew. It's almost over. This challenge is almost over. It's breaking through. And the significance of it is huge. I'm not going to say that's what she said because we all know where that's going to get me. Um, but anyway, significance is huge. Okay. And in this video, I want to talk about maybe from different perspective about what I've always been talking about. But I guess if I, it's interesting to come up with many different perspectives about the same thing. It crystallizes much better. It's just like this holographic phenomena that when you have like many points of lasers intersecting, the picture arises, right? And each laser is like one perspective, and there's so many of them, and we just can explore all of those. So then that picture crystallizes, and you get to see of what that is. You see, and you don't have to read a book. You don't have to ask anybody out. It's just you keep on exploring it. And by the way, that perspective arises every time you pass the alchemical test. Okay, and I don't know, for other people may arise something else, and then somebody can share their perspective, like I see it like that, and I was like, well, that's pretty freaking cool way of seeing it. But this particular perspective that I want to share, it is about this. You know, what are we doing with this alchemical work? What we're really doing is we are shutting the portal through which the demons enter, so to speak. Again, this is just metaphorical talk. Even the word demon and depiction of the demon as sort of like a reptile looking animal and stuff like that, that's just illustration of the energy. Um, and the reason it's reptilian looking and, with sharp teeth and stuff like that, and sort of, it's because of it corresponds to the reptilian nature of functioning. Okay, it's just like program to accomplish something, so to receive pleasure, otherwise there's pain, and so you can see why they would do anything possible, that type of programming, to get that, unless there's a consequences that is more painful than not getting that. Okay, and at this particular level, alchemy is not personal. First of all, no more. It's no longer personal, because as you keep on going in downward spiral, I suppose it doesn't have to be downward, but spiraling towards the center. Um, that's where, like, a biblically speaking, there's uh, this fire, this hellfire, that they say all of the wicked is gonna burn in this eternal fire. It's just a way of saying that you're going to be alchemizing that level, and because it does feel, you know, it does feel like fire. It does feel like pain. But if you remain with it, if you alchemize it, all of those different factors that do not want to be placed upon the fire, giving in and are being burned. Okay, and it has a real effect on the entire reality that you are in, because that feeling, like I said before, is the film through which the whole projection happens. And so, in a way, if you defend the throne, you don't let these evil entities to get what they want, which are programs, right? This is why it's not about the people; it's about the programming of people, right? Um, this is why I think I said it before. Like a homicide is not malicide. I mean, homicide does not fix the problem. Malicide fixes the problem. Okay, and even though those energies act through people, but you can clearly see. I mean, anybody who had any kind of interaction with people will see that there is a type of behavior that is clearly, you can call it demonic. It is some sort of tantrum that happens, and then you can clearly see that there is also a soul, you know, in the people that I tend to interact. But there are people who are just basically, there's nothing home. It's just the programming. We talked about this before. But I'm talking about the people who are sort of, you can call them 4D, which is sort of like in between. Sometimes they slip into the ego and then slip out into the soul. And in my case, as I've been alchemizing for them, I don't know for how long, but I made a promise to myself that like never let this throne go un uncatered, I suppose, right? And but I failed. Like I said, this year, no, this year, yeah, maybe this year I failed once and I lost the control because I got too high. Um, and the last year, a couple of times, but every time it happened to me, the events that followed, I was like, wow, these events, I could link these events, these negative events in my life, I could link me of taking my guard off, so to speak. It's not a ego guard. It's not like, you know, this type of mind guard, that this critical factor that does not allow you to feel anything. It's not this. I'm not talking about this, okay? It is this natural guard that happens upon entering this, what it seems to be like a deepest vulnerability, but this actually has the most security there. It's in this where you cannot hold on to anything. You can't grab on to anything. It's just infinite, continuous falling and going. And that's where you get like the most security, where there's no more fear, because fear itself kind of turned into the infinite feeling of bliss and peace. That's where you live. This is where you want to live. And I mean, this becoming to me like a natural state of being. And anything in the way of this, I'm alchemizing this. Because if I'm in some sort of degree peace and bliss, I have to say, okay, why not? Why am I not at this, the base of reality that I am? And then it's usually, there's something to alchemize, to fall through it again. Okay? And that's what I mean by defending your throne. Because that bliss that you feel is the light and is your protection. You don't need your ego. You don't need a belief. You see? It's just a feeling. That is at the base of the reality that must be always sustained. So, what I'm trying to say here is that that's the first order of business. Okay? If you don't want the negative things happening in your life, then you have to alchemize the negative feeling. Okay? And that's in a way, one way of looking at it as guarding the portal. You guarding the portal through which demons may come through. And if you guard the that portal well, they don't come through. None, even like um, evil cannot function. You understand? This is why, like, this idea of like, oh, how do you fight the evil? This is how you fight the evil. You know, like in the movies, vampires burn in the light, sunlight. What is the sunlight? Is a metaphor for because sunlight can, of course, it's an external thing. It's the light, the internal thing, that bliss energy, and demons sizzling in that light. Okay, and and that's it. You see what I'm trying to say? Like, that's the first order of business. Like, if you do that, then everything else is going to be, call it in a nice way. And you, another way of looking at it is you kind of defend your timeline. Okay, and in that timeline, different type of events happen, different type of people happen. That timeline automatically rejects, like almost like this electromagnetically, pulls what it's necessary and rejects what it's not. And so this is why that's like the best um, thing that you could do, because it's indestructible and you don't have to defend it. Okay, now saying that, I want to mention something else. For example, this way you no longer have enemies. You deal with the enemies at this level. You have no enemies, because when you're sitting in peace and bliss, what is there to be angry about? You have no enemies. However, I also have to say that you still have opponents. It's in your heart, have no enemies, but sorry. My mate gets too strong. Me no lucky. Better. Now, what was I saying? Right. However, your mind needs a challenge and needs to have an opponent. Right? This is like in you need that. Okay? The problem is if you don't do any alchemy and you don't remain in that peace, bliss, and defend your throne, which is I call a golden throne, you have no business entering the silver throne. The silver throne is the astral world, the imagination world. It's a mind world. But that world functions on a temporal laws, not infinite laws. It may receive the energy from the infinite laws, but it's not running, it's not driving by it. It's driving by some sort of challenge. Mind always needs a challenge. Now, in this case, you retire the mind from the challenge of fixing your feelings, because it always creates this demonic beliefs. All beliefs are demonic. Even believe in God. This is why people believe in Jesus, believe in God. All beliefs are demonic. So It seems like, do you believe in God or do you believe in Jesus? Like, yeah, I believe in God, I believe in Jesus. Well, if you do, then uh, you're basically going to have enemies, um, and still functioning on this demonic platform. I have to say, you know what Satan is? I mean, people may not like it, but I don't give a shit. It's just the truth. Because it's kind of enough. It's no longer time to live in the belief system like little fucking children, like soul maturity, right? At no point, even little children don't do that. So it's an insult to children, but it's this inability to mature without the ego. Um, it's never acceptable, by the way. It is a failure of playing this game, you see. So, you know what Satan is. There's many ways you can interpret that. And I told you in, like, I think in the last video, I talked about this divisive factor, which is the logical invasion of where the logo is supposed to be in charge. Logics enter, and that is creating those demonic divisive structures in your soul, which feels like pain and suffering and all that stuff, right? And from there stems negative thoughts, and then some errors and some problems in a physical reality, right? So there. But if you function on the belief, and the worst belief is belief in ultimate authority, ultimate spiritual authority. So belief in God is Satan. That thing that you created, that God that you created, that's your belief, right? That ultimate authority over the reality is what you can honestly say to be Satan. Because you have no idea of what you've done. The game is about not letting beliefs to be formed and living in the truth and using the mind appropriately. And so that pride and belief in God is the worst thing a person can do. That's why people talk about Satan. Oh, Satan doing this, Satan doing that. Well, stop believing in God, and all the problems will go away. All the satanic problems. It's the problem that people believe in God because it's an ultimate authority, and it's the worst belief. This is the belief that you have to let go. I mean, that safety mechanism that mind still grabs hold on to as like ultimate one has to burn out, and only then you go into the infinite, and you don't have to believe in anything because infinite is God, if you will. But you don't even have to name it. Like, naming it destroys it, because it's alive, it's ever changing, it's moving. It's You can never grab hold onto it with your mind. It's alive. You can't grab it. You can't have it. You can't have it. It just, you gotta just let it live. Let it be alive. And then in that case, your heart becomes in charge, and the mind becomes a tool. And your mind is a great tool. Okay. Um, but it's a horrible master. I mean, like, I'm beginning to just repeat the same things that have been said for centuries, but that's the idea. And it's even the things that I'm saying, it's not going to do anything unless you actually, what I call, that go through this process of alchemy. Because if your mind grabs hold onto anything, then you cannot fall through into the infinite in your essence. There's a fear there. There's like, oh my God. And the fear is there only because you're holding on to something. But as soon as you let go, it's not a fear anymore. It's bliss. It's joy. It's ecstasy. That's what it is if you're not holding on to any beliefs. Okay? And this is why sometimes people like, demons, fear, uh, this type of infinite, because they can survive in it, right? It's this hellfire that demons burn in. But really, it's just like, it's the structure that's been cast out of that fire anyway, is molded back into it again. So then you can create something that is not rigid but alive. And then you can call that angel. Which is what? It's a positive feeling. I'm not again creating another belief system because there's not this if you cannot experience it directly, then it doesn't exist. I told you, like, there are 56 negative feelings, right? And then maybe branching out on all sorts of other specializations. I'm gonna get into that too, but it's enough to know that there are 56 variations that you need to be alchemizing to complete your entire um, philosopher's stone. Okay, and and of course, once that structure dissolves, it turns into something, and you can call it, okay, that's an archangel, because it's this feeling. And if it is completely ultimate bliss that is sort of undifferentiated, you can call it, this white light or God. And then everything is splits into those 7 colors. Each color you can call it an archangel. You can create that little map. The structure of consciousness is like a clockwork. It exists, and it's just is, always been, always will be. But you can create many different labels to it, many different lexicons to describe it. This alchemical challenge is coming to an end, by the way. It wasn't the toughest that I ever had to deal with. It definitely wasn't the toughest, but what it was, persistent. It required patience, not sort of like intense attention, which sometimes it is required, but this is required persistent, resilient attention, and sort of almost like just being now waiting for it to end. Where, and that degree of peace that you acquire immediately after you just completely. So, okay, let's just say this particular challenge requires more is surrender, some courage, but mostly surrender, because it's either one or the other that's required. But this is what's required right now. Okay, now I want to go into the mind. Um, mind then becomes useful servant, and you're using it, of course, differently. But Mind is not used anymore for like to have enemies and fight the enemies, but it does use to have opponents. A mind needs a challenge, like in a sport, right? Like when you, hopefully, like if you are altogether human being, sport is about to have an opponent, not the enemy, because you want to destroy the enemy. You don't want to destroy the opponent. You just want to use it to better yourself. Okay. Um, so this is what the mind must be employed at. So when you see somebody's performing and you say, "Oh shit!" Like rather than, of course, like the jealousy may not even be there if you already alchemize everything. But if there is a jealousy, you alchemize it, and then when there isn't jealousy, what you're seeing something is like a game. Okay, there's someone performing really well, and this is my art as well. And so now you can look that person as a your opponent, and then you enter this competitive game, but it's not based on the anger. It's not based on hate. It's just based on the game. Okay, and then you can see the world a little bit more like, okay, it's just a game. Don't take it personally. I mean, it's easier said than done. Sometimes when things happen that you're just like completely unjust, you're like, it's difficult and tough to process all this wrath that happens. Of course, I'm not saying that, but nevertheless, it must be dealt with and then looked at as a game again. Okay, it's sort of like the attitude of like, all right, let's play, let's play this game. You know, okay. Mind needs that, by the way. Friendly competition or some sort of challenge. Mind needs that. But you don't really have a right to go there if you haven't done the real alchemical work on emotions, because you're going to wreak freaking havoc. Okay? You're gonna, rather than becoming like an enjoy, have like an enjoyable competition, you become like a maniac sometimes. Right now, these people, these men supposed to be right now like looked up to because of how maniacy they are, and they sort of keeping afloat and they don't have to face their own shit because they super compensate with the willpower. This is not what I'm talking about. You you definitely don't need to become a maniac, and you know all these people, the way they talk, um, the things that they do, this clearly out of control person, but the only control that they have is over completion of some sort of challenge, right? And it's not like a completion of a challenge and then enjoyment. It's just like a non-stop over and over and over again intensity, because the second they're going to stop, they're going to have to face themselves. And so I don't consider them to be a mature man. They're still boys. They may look strong, they may look uh, you know with a lot of willpower, but I'm not impressed. Willpower is easy, but alchemy is hard. They think what is like the willpower is easy, man. You just focus on something, intensely enough. Every time that resistance comes up, you focus on it again, again, and again. And that's essentially willpower. And it's like a solar plexus game. It's easy. Right. It does require a certain endurance and even enjoyment of this burn or pain that happens. But with training, you can do it regularly. Every time you move into a little bit deeper into that fire, a little bit deeper into that fire, and you can train your willpower. Eventually, you kind of break through, and that's it. And you have like unstoppable willpower. So that is not difficult to train. And the problem with that type of willpower that is trained well without the alchemy is that it's going to be misused. It's going to be, because there's still beliefs there, and it's going to be misused. It's going to cause problems. It's going to cause dysfunction, disorder. Still, this is why um, these types of men should not have this type of approach and glorification of them, because they're disorderly. They're not healthy. I can mention one person. Okay, Rickson Gracie. The only, okay, it's not the only, there may be many more, but the only one that is kind of very well known and martial artist that's also an alchemist. 400 and 0. Okay? He understands both worlds. He understands the world of willpower, world of technique, and he understands the world of spirit as well. This is why he was unbeatable, because he already beaten his opponent within himself before he entered the. And he could tell you that, and he was capable of telling. But that's the thing, is that he was teaching people, but unless there, there's that internal courage to face these internal things, it's just not gonna work, because it's not intellectual. And so then people remain in the belief system and not really out. And you can also see that he's a man. He's not a maniac. And it's almost like all the attention is being put on some maniac fighter, because it gets that rush of, kind of addictive. But the real person who has 400 and all is kind of rarely mentioned lately. You see what I'm trying to say? It's almost that there's such a reverence, there's such a level that it's better. Let's not even look at it, because the person is going to make us to live up to the standard that, like, we don't even believe that it's possible. Almost like that. I don't know. I'm just talking here, but perhaps. And any endeavor in the sports, it is a hero's journey. It is an alchemical challenge. It's a magic challenge, and a might challenge. And whatever you do in life, whatever that endeavor is has to be completely connected with the entire process, with the spirit, soul, mind, and body. It's all connected, right? It's not about the title. It's about whether you're growing as a soul and developing as a soul. That's like, these pieces of the puzzle that you put together. Are you doing that? This fragmentation within your soul, are you reconnecting everything back together every time there's a challenge, every time there's a fight? Are you doing that process? Only then the mind and body games matter. Without that, it's just nothing. It's nothing. It's it's just soon gonna be an archive. So what's the point, right? But the philosopher's stone is forever. So, and again, I want to just say that it's not some sort of like, um, it is. Look, suffering is nonsense, and suffering only happens upon not facing those things. It's a paradox, because when you are in your mind, that sensation may be looked at as pain, but when you completely place your attention, all of that the mind does not have any energy anymore, and all of your attention is on your soul, it's very clearly that it's not pain, and you don't have to feel that pain. Pain is gone whenever you give all of your attention to it. And sometimes I just may add that there are types of attention, and you got to figure out which that is. It's almost like that game that you got to unlock that lock. You got to find the key, right? It's like what Bitcoin is doing is resolving that mathematical challenge, but this is like energy challenge that is there. And so this is but you'll find it if you place the attention there. It's almost like that's what it asks you first, and then it's going to give you hints, and through this surrender to the spontaneous movements, you get it and you unlock it, and that's when you level up from that particular challenge. Okay, now what else can I say about this? Yeah, just don't get stuck on this, you know, and stop using your mind. Trust me, I've uh, I've had this. I made this mistake of misinterpreting all of these teachings because again, it was a belief. But when I destroyed that belief, the truth came out, and it says like, no, this is bullshit. This is not how it works. Your mind does not operate the way your soul operates. Yes, you can totally have no enemies and have many opponents, and you should, because otherwise, if you don't, what kind of game is there if there's no opponents or a challenge? There's no game. So why is it's not going to be fun to play, right? That includes all the facets of life. That's what's like most popular is what people talk about relationships and business, right? Like that's the male domain and the female domain. They're both involved in it, but and it's always this thing, man. They have not resolved this hatred, and then they trying to have a relationship where they're still full of hate towards the entire gender. And so you have then you breed this the army of these pickup artists who absolutely hate women and learn how to manipulate them. And then of course another side of it is these women who are also hate men, but but still want to get all the perks from it. So you see like this matrix bullshit game. It's just ridiculous. I'm not talking about this game. Okay? When you have no enemies, then you can play a game. But if you still have enemies, means you still hate something. Like even even this topic about the Jews, and it seems that that's just also going to be a thing. Just because again, taking any subject, you will find that there's something that you have to have compassion for. That does not mean acceptance in the game of the mind, right? If there's a criminal or did something that is some sort of treason or betrayal of the humanity principles, whatever that may be, okay, that person needs to be locked up, definitely. Um, should there be hate towards that person? No, because it doesn't help anybody, and you may go too far and impose some sort of like a capital punishment on that person because there's still hate. But if there's no hate anymore, you would say, okay, these types of people need to be locked up, definitely, and access to do harm revoked. Okay, fair enough. And then we see from there, maybe they can be rehabilitated and exercise of their demons and whatnot, whatever, right? Um, okay, so that's how you deal with the malicide rather than going to the homicide, right? That's what you deal. Like if somebody had conspired against the state, conspired against the humanity, definitely need to be locked up and their privilege taken away. There's no doubt about that. Um, but I don't think they should be killed because then you go into the dark side, like and sacrifice and all that shit. Um, but you can totally play this game right with with compassion. Compassion does not mean sympathy. Compassion does not mean like, oh yeah, but um, they can't help it. You see, they can't help it, so and so yeah, that's what it is. No, so fucking what that they can't help it. Even more of a reason to block them and jail them. You see, of course, and maybe some time in jail after doing these atrocious crimes is is exactly what they need. Okay. So yeah, so that's my take. You don't kill them, but you definitely um, reduce corruption as much as possible by creating consequences, natural consequence to the things that was always meant to exist, but were sort of like avoided because of the corruption. Because if there's no corruption, a person who is a criminal is in jail. It's just the way it is, right? But if there's a corruption, then the person who is criminal can get away with shit. And this is why they corrupt the system so they can get away with the shit, right? Okay, it's all mechanical, it's all demonic, it's all these people don't know what the fuck they're doing. They're not really on. The question whether they can be on, can they be rehabilitated and not have this addiction to power and control? I don't know. I think that some definitely can be rehabilitated for sure. Ego definitely when it dies or gets dissolved when it doesn't get its hit anymore. It may go thrashing on the way out, but it happens. And if there's nothing else but ego, okay, if there's not like a little bit of soul there, and it's just like a 100% NPC, then as ego is dying, so is the body. But it's natural. It's you see, you're just preventing the access to crimes, the access um, to do evil. And if that makes a person to suffer so much that they can't even let that go, then probably there is no soul there, you know. But again, it's just if it happens, happens. But you don't have that intent. You give the best possible chance for the ego to dissolve and see if there's an actual soul there, um, who would never do any of these things, you know. So there's like a right type of approach to this, that that's justice. Okay, that's the difference between justice and revenge. I just wanted to say that. Okay. So definitely, if you can do anything about that, seek the justice, but not the revenge. It's just not, you know. And also, you know, no one prevents you to really play that game of capitalism if you're interested in having control. But now, of course, if you've alchemized everything, that control to you is going to be just like a game. You're not going to take it to the extreme, and you just enjoy this financial game, to gain certain types of freedoms, you know, physical freedoms to, you know, to travel, to do whatever you want, but not bribe your way through it. You see what I'm trying to say? You're not corrupt with your power, with your monetary influence. You will not obviously be interested. So what I'm trying to say is that you can totally be super wealthy and not be an evil fuck. And it's just because you like playing the game, and you do it for the love of the game, not for the hate of the enemy. You see, or the hate of humanity. So it's important, out of which that, you know, like, if a person gets rejected by a girl and never process it, and then starts creating some sort of system that later is going to be used by millions and millions of people to get addicted to some sort of crap and program with nonsense and bullshit, don't be surprised when it happens. I guess we can figure out what I'm talking about, but that's what happens. This is why I'm not impressed with this type of achievement. You build a tool, that's great, but if you build a tool that's making people suffer, or keeping them in the cycle of suffering, and the reason you did that, because you would never fucking do that if you have processed that thing and figured out and how to build something, out of love, not out of still hate, right? And this is why that hate is masked. You know, these people are full of hate, but this mask, they have this numbness, right? This psychopathic numbness, because there is this belief in safety through their powerful means, through the means of power, right? And this is why they're calm, but they're not. You know, you just take that away, and then you'll see what's really there. You know. And you can see that, right? Like, if you can watch these people in the way they talk, you can see that, like, it comes through the way they talk. um, it's um, it's almost like uh, it's almost like controlled psychosis. That's what it is, you know. Anyway, so that's what I wanted to say. This is why, you know, people say, well, you gotta love everybody. You can totally love everybody, but that doesn't mean you have to like them. Okay? because to be like them is to be like them. And if you're not like them, you don't have to like them. The love must be there, because it's there anyway, upon alchemizing the hate. But you don't have to like them, and meaning that in this game side of it, um, they're your opponents, and you don't want them to be successful in propagating corruption. You don't want them to succeed, and you don't have to like them. But there's still love is still there. And so I think people really confuse these functions of consciousness and what is empathy, what is sympathy, what is compassion. Compassion is for everybody. It's just you have this peace in the background of everything. You don't hate the people. But if you do something that is not right, you can totally tell them to fuck off. You know? From the bottom of my heart, go fuck yourself. You know? And that's how you discriminate or discern those two worlds, and you don't combine those two things. And so this is what the problem happened. This sympathy, right, is masquerading as compassion, and people call it simping, right? And this is true. Like, people are simping, and they're letting evil people through the borders, and they're letting them get away. It's simping. It's not compassion. You don't let that to be the case. You don't let them get away with this. Like, you do, just because they're like, this false compassion, which is actually just almost like a ridiculous, like to defend a obvious criminal because of some um, agenda that we are inclusive, and when we should accept everybody. And then when people ask, like, well, why don't you just let that person stay at your house? No, exactly. So you don't really fucking believe it. So why don't you, what I'm saying? So simping is not compassion. Simping is bad, okay? Simping is real bad, okay? All my videos is like about an hour. Well, all right. It is what it is. What else I want to say? Yeah, and with your head and screwed on and your heart on, you can totally do what's supposed to be real good, like, and not just creating a lot more problems. So, and alchemy is the way to deal um with the demons. Magic is the way to deal with the criminals, and might also be with the way to deal with the criminal and corruption activity. And then there's no backlash from this type of approach. Right? Okay. Sorry for pausing a lot, but just buffering every time I'm pausing. It would be nice to have like this symbol is just buffering. My forehead buffering. Anyway, you get the point. Okay? With alchemy, magic, and might, everything's gonna be alright. Okay. Okay. All right. Cool. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.